What I'm going to be sharing is basically a 2-week presentation that I got to cram down into 20 minutes. We're going to be talking about turning data into barrels. This is a doctrine out of a book that I prepared, and it's just talking about what AI, what leadership, and what leadership needs to prepare for to be able to do AI. So a quick word about myself. I come from, I spent more than 35 years building systems for companies, Fortune 500. Yes, thank you. All right, thank you very much. Okay. Good. I was an expert on the IBM I-Series for over 35 years. I'm also an Oracle Enterprise expert for over 25 years of implementing ERP systems for Fortune 500 companies. For example, like Tiffany & Company, the Ford Foundation, some very large organizations. I basically, over the last 18 years, I've been in and out of Nigeria working. I've been a director at a big 4 firm. I've also worked for some EPC companies and things there. So I have a lot of background from technology, plus also the operation side of the oil and gas industry at a very deep level. Basically, I've been involved doing things that was AI before AI started being called AI. Because the best thing about AI now is it actually generates the code for you that I used to spend hours on doing, and now it just makes it faster than what we're doing now. So, but the same disciplines that I've done doing for the last 35 years of my career is the same things you have to do now as a leader in this industry to be able to implement AI. Okay. Let's go here. All right. Here's my main point, and everything else comes back to it. AI will not save Nigerian oil and gas. I can tell you that right now. It's the leadership that's going to use it well is what's going to save the Nigerian oil and gas. The models are everywhere now. The cloud, you can rent it. The talent is here, okay? None of it's hard to get anymore. What's hard to get is a discipline at the top. Deciding with changing the result in the field, who owns the fix, and how you measure it, and how you keep it safe. So the question isn't, what AI tool should I buy right now? It's sharper than that. Where exactly are you losing barrels? You're losing money, the uptime, and time. And what is each of these costing you every month? Ask it that way, and the real opportunity shows up fast. This is about doing the work, not the hype. Not tools, not pilots, just doing the results. Why does this matter right now? Because the gap is real, and we count on it. NNPC has committed Nigeria to 2 million barrels a day by 2027 and 3 million by 2030, and to $36 billion of new investments this decade. Now look at it, what we're actually producing. Last July, we averaged 1.7 million barrels a day. This year, we're bouncing between 1.4 and 1.6. Good months and bad months. We're more than 150,000 barrels apart. So we're not nudging from 2.9 up to 3. We're closing a gap well over 1.3 million barrels a day, which is bigger than most OPEC countries in making it in total. And we're doing it across 323 fields, 265 processing stations, and more than 5,000 kilometers of pipeline. You can't run a system that big on spreadsheets that show up after it's too late to act. When the AI fails in the oil and gas, and it usually does, It fails for plain basic reasons. The first, the data can't move. Bad connections at the site, no way to process it. Close by, no clean path for the wellhead to the model. The whole thing just stalls. Second, bad data. Confident wrong answers out. A good model fed lousy data gives you a clean, polished, very nice looking answer that is totally wrong. The third, no owner, no action. If you're building something with AI and nobody's taking action on what you're doing, you're just wasting your time and building something pretty. Okay. The field doesn't get better because a model found a pattern. It gets better when a person acts. And fourth, no guardrails. Turning a model on loose near live operation isn't innovative. It's just a big risk. None of these are data science problems. They are how you run your business going forward. So when you turn something on, when you're working with AI, you make sure you always have a human available to review what's going on. AI doesn't know if somebody's standing on the edge of a platform and realizing that there's an HSE issue about to happen. AI doesn't care. But that's why you have to have a human being involved in everything that we're doing. So what actually creates value? Not one bright moment. It's just a loop. We have a sense, decide, act, and learn. Sense is the field data. It's the meters, it's the work orders, it's the inspections, reports. Decide is the model plus a person's judgment. Act is the part where most people skip. A real task, a named owner, a deadline. And learn is checking the results against where you started and feeding it back in. Here's why it works. What AI really does is it makes predicting things cheap. And predicting gets cheap. The value part becomes good data to feed in and good judgments to act on. Most programs build the sending part and stop. So the questions for your own shop is simple. Where does your loop break? Everything I'll show you sits on 6 simple ideas, and I'll move fast on this. 1, the loop we just talked about. Sense, decide, act, and learn. 2, the data foundation. Because a model built on weak data gives you weak answers. 3, the autonomy ladder. Go step by step from inform to advise to act to letting it act on its own. Never faster than you can control it. For a clear map on where AI creates value and whether it can destroy it. 5, sequence is right as data, pilot, person in the loop, the scale what pays, and 6, always tie it back to the barrel. Hold those 6 in your head and the rest of the talk is just putting them to work. Here's the chain. I want every executive in the room to remember, data becomes intelligence. Intelligence drives the decision. The decision drives action, and the action produces barrels. 5 links, and the chain is only as strong as the weakest one. Poor data and the intelligence is weak in the ways you can't even see. If people don't trust the model because the engineers weren't part of building it, or it got something wrong early and nobody explained why. Decisions get slow. If nobody owns the decision, nothing happens. And if you never measure the action against a baseline, you can't prove it created any value. So it can't defend its budget, so it dies. No matter how good it was, that's why this is a change in how you run the business. This is not an IT project. IT projects deliver systems. This delivers new habits, and barrels come from new habits. If you can only fund one thing in your first year, the evidence points hard at predictive maintenance. And in Nigeria, even more so. When equipment fails, out of the blue, the repair bill is never the real cost. The real cost is everything that follows. The unit trips and you lose production right away. On a critical compressor or an export pump, that's thousands of barrels a day on the books. The emergency parts, a premium price. Then the logistics, the overseas shipping, port backups, customs, the foreign exchange, and offshore boats and security on top. A $200,000 repair can easily burn several million once you count lost production and logistics. And the technology is proven. McKinsey documented an offshore operation that can predict maintenance across 9 platforms in Africa and Latin America and cut downtime 20%, more than 500,000 barrels a year. The goal isn't to replace the crew, it's to move them up the ladder from reactive, which tells you what already broke, past preventive, which checks on a calendar, to predictive, which tells you what's about to break, when and why, and matter to the money. Let me make that concrete, because percentages don't move money, barrels do. On the left is a real published evidence. McKinsey, an offshore operator, 9 platforms across Africa and Latin America, downtime down 20%, more than 500,000 barrels a year. Now picture it on our assets, and this is an example, not a claim. The critical compressor trips, call it 8,000 barrels a day. In one world, the part clear shipping, customs, foreign exchange, and the boats. So a 3-day planned job turns into a 14-day emergency. That's about 112,000 barrels deferred, $8 million or more. Of a $200,000 repair, the repair is now the cost, the pile on after it's happened. Predictive maintenance gives you the warning to turn that emergency back into a planned job. But your own numbers, put your own numbers in here and test this out for yourself and you will see. It's just not about doing the main fix. It's everything else that comes along. Now this works without the data foundation. And that's the part most people skip because it doesn't look impressive in a demo. Think of it in layers. Field signals at the bottom, meters, work orders, inspections, reports, governed data on top, named owners, standard definitions, validation. Then the smarts, models and alerts. And at the top, the business impact, barrels, compliance, capital. 2 things to remember. First, you do not need perfect data across the whole system to start. And waiting for it will kill your program. Build a solid foundation around the few decisions that matter the most. Then grow from that. Second, this is one investment with more than one payoff. The same clean data that powers AI also gives you the reporting that NUPRC now wants. And the numbers your lenders and investors will trust. One foundation will have several wins. So how do you start without trying to boil the ocean? Give yourself 90 days. Don't launch 20 use cases, just pick one that's bounded and painful and it's measurable. The first 30 days you'll diagnose, pick the problem, measure the loss, and map the data and the workflow. Days 31 to 60, you'll build it, connect the data, stand up the model, assign the owners, run it inside a controlled workflow. Days 61 to 90, you'll prove it, you'll run it live, measure against your baseline, and bank the credibility. The credibility is what earns you the right to scale it. And it lasts a lot longer than any vendor promise. Everything I've said assumes people will act on what the model tells them. They only will if they trust it. And in our business, that trust has to be earned. We don't assume it. Here's why it matters so much. A wrong answer in a consumer tech is a bad song recommendation. A wrong answer at a wellhead is a safety event, lost production, an environmental problem, or a regulatory breach. When the cost of being wrong is that high, you build a control from the start. Clear ownership of every model, a person signing off on the high stakes calls, audit trails, and steady monitoring. And there's a direct payoff. NUPRC's April directive is pushing everybody toward measured, verified emissions reporting. The same clean data that makes a model trustworthy makes your filings hold up. So the rule is simple. Don't trust the AI because it's advanced. Trust it when the data, the controls, and the people around it are strong. And this isn't one use case. It's a way to run the whole business end to end. Two quick examples. First, production. In our mature and marginal fields, 5 to 10% of the barrels that you could be making leak away into small losses nobody flags. AI makes them visible. Second, projects, and let me make this one real. I sat down recently with a senior executive, one international major, and what he told me stuck with me. Most of the subcontractor leaders had come to him with the same complaint. Their work gets judged on relationships and last month's report, not on real current evidence. So problems show up too late, disputes follow, and the good ones can't get the credit for being good. I've heard that exact same thing from subcontract leaders myself. That's why where predictive project management changes the game. It forecasts which packages will slip weeks before the schedule shows it, and scores every contractor on the facts. Better for you, better for the strong Nigerian contractor who will finally get the credit they've earned. And the price is big. 98% of the big capital projects run over budget by more than 30%. And 77% finish at least 40% late. Catching the late slip beats reporting it. And it doesn't just watch, it acts. The second is a planner changes one data in Primavera 6. This is actually a tool that looks built over anything that you have. If you have Primavera 6, Microsoft Project, this is it's hard to see the screen in it. It's a preventive a tool that would actually tell a project manager, somebody made a change, now we got an issue going to happen. It doesn't wait until the next status report. The client's project manager, or got ahead of myself. Nobody had to put that together. The point isn't the software, it's the way you operate. You and your client see the risk in seconds. If you'll see, this is here, then over on the right is a actual iPhone app where you can see it. So something happens here, the client can get the message at the exact same time. This is all used in predictive AI. Okay. I'll speed up now because I got the buzz. Here's the one thing I care most about. Everything I describe needs brains to run it. And the question, whose brains? Local content, phase one, built the yards, the jobs, and the ownership. Steel and manpower. Phase two has to build the smart layer, the data, the models, the platforms that decide who competes in this industry for the next 30 years. The choice is simple. Import the platforms and we rent our operating brain from somewhere else. The fees and the learning go offshore. We need to build it and own it here, and every deployment makes us stronger. With an export market across Africa that has the very same problems, few countries have both a world-class tech talent pool and 60 years of oil and gas experience. Nigeria has both. What's hard in real AI isn't the algorithm, it's knowing the field. That's exactly what we have, and the vendors don't. So let's own the smart layer and don't rent it out. Which brings me to measurements. Measure and in barrels, not dashboards. Downtime avoided. Barrels protected. Reconciliation lag. Maintenance compliance. Data quality. Revenue assured. Those are the numbers leadership should be asking for, not how many models we deployed or dashboards we launched. Tie every flagged risk to one of these with a baseline behind it, so 6 months from now, we're arguing about our results, not our opinions. And there's a test. A program that can't tell you today's number has no business claiming it approved it. What you're measuring in barrels, you manage in barrels. Let me save you some pain. 5 ways this program dies. 1, starting with technology instead of value. You buy a platform and nothing changes in the field. 2, waiting for the perfect data. You try to fix everything instead of the decisions that matter. 3, an insight with no owner, the model sparks a problem. Nobody acts. The field never improves. 4, handling the system, more freedom than you can give it control. Somebody throwing water at me. Dodge that, and if you do this, you'll be ahead of everybody else in the industry. I have about 30 more slides, but my time's running out. Yeah, so,
thank you.
But thank you.
To share your wealth of knowledge.
Yeah.